I have always loved geometry. Although I hated every other kind of math and failed miserably at it, geometry was different. I can't define exactly why it was different for me, but there was definitely a visual component to it that appealed to me, and I was able to succeed in studying it. That led to a love of sacred geometry, and this creative process is quite rewarding. When thinking of my geometry studies, I often remember the first day of my 10th grade geometry class. The teacher held up a sheet of paper that she had labeled Class Rules. She asked for suggestions in developing this list of rules for the class. I didn't care for rules much, so I kept my mouth shut. Other students, however, started shouting out suggestions. No talking, no chewing gum, no combing your hair or putting on lip balm, face forward at all times. At the end of the exercise, she had a list of rules that was more stringent and unreasonable than any other list of rules that teachers had provided. We couldn't blame her for the rules because she didn't make them up. The class was collectively responsible. Although this was many years ago, I remember well how shocked I was to see how people would participate so enthusiastically in their own oppression. I was an idealistic youth who had not accepted that pragmatism was a worthy exchange for fairness. And while I had no problem following rules that made sense, some of these rules seemed unfair. If chewing gum provided me with some comfort during a long day when I could not access food or a water fountain whenever I wished, why should I not be allowed to do that? Maybe someone who was popping bubbles loudly during class could be made to spit their gum out. Maybe someone who was caught sticking it under a desk could be required to scrape the underside of desks after school. Why should everyone who chewed gum responsibly be deprived of doing so just because some people chose to be irresponsible? It seemed not only unfair, but lazy. It was easier to ban something across the board and punish anyone caught doing it at all than to make a determination as to who was exercising their rights irresponsibly. My discontent applied to other rules as well. If I had to sit still in a desk for 50 minutes, why did I have to be uncomfortable? Why should I not be able to move around a bit or sit sideways for a few minutes to relieve the fatigue? If I forgot to bring an eraser, why should I not be able to whisper to the person next to me a request to borrow one? If my lips were chapped, why should I not be able to moisturize them? As long as I did those things responsibly, without disturbing anyone else, why should I not be able to? It seemed to fly in the face of all that we were taught in history class about freedom and responsibility. The answer to the question why seemed to be a complete lack of trust. And the more that I witnessed this phenomenon, the more that I realized that people who are not trusted do not have the opportunity to become trustworthy. It was the self-fulfilling prophecy in action, that people will tend to become the identity that is placed upon them. Students tended to behave immaturely and irresponsibly because they were treated as if they were immature and irresponsible. It was what was expected of them, and they came through with flying colors and meeting those expectations. I felt that treating us in this way was a disservice to our development. The students who would have stuck gum to the bottom of desks, or disturbed the class by talking or failed to pay attention to the instruction, simply broke the rules and did those things anyway. There was still gum on the bottom of desks, even though we were not allowed to chew it. Those that would have acted responsibly if allowed to do those things not only followed the rules, they became advocates for their own loss of freedom. At the time, I fantasized about what my life would be like when I became an adult. I craved the freedom that I would have once I could chew gum when I liked or sit comfortably. But as I grew up and began to experience the adult world, I realized that it was no different. Many jobs held some of the same stringent requirements. As a young adult, there seemed to be a rule and regulation governing everything that I wished to do. Those rules, which were presumed to be created for the protection of our happiness and well-being, in practice often robbed us of our happiness and well-being by not allowing us to do rewarding things that didn't harm others. Why should I not be able to build my own house the way that I wanted to build it without having to jump through hoops? Why should I not be able to have chickens in my suburban backyard as long as they were not bothering anyone? Why should I have to ask permission to build a shed in my yard or make a home repair? The fact that some people did those things irresponsibly should not impact my ability to do them at all. Fear and lack of trust leads to control. Control leads to subjugation. If the things which we fear and distrust were to actually happen, it would still be more desirable than a world without freedom. The state of the world that we live in is a reflection of how we go through life in our own individual way. When we let go of our need to control others and embrace life with confidence and trust, we are rewarded. That's not to say that we will never step in a wad of gum that some thoughtless person has dropped on the ground, but that inconvenience will come with the joys that come with chewing gum, if we wish to.